It's hard for me. I'm willing to learn for some votes. Other municipalities across Southern California install locks. I'm a property manager. If people are stealing trash, we put a lock on the bin. I don't know where the complexity really comes in, so I would lock the recycle bins. Of course, as you folks know, multifamily dwellings don't really have recycle bins. Recycle bins are mostly in single-family homes. So if we would introduce recycle bins in multifamily, we would have lots of...
Please.
I have not seen many of them. I'm glad they're there.
All right, sorry, Bob, your time is up.
I'd like to get a take.
Let's go to Susan.
I don't like people going through my recycling. I put it out, I have papers for my clients, and, personal papers. I just don't like the fact that somebody might be taking those things. So what I do is I just wait and put it out at the last minute, so it's not sitting there for people to go to. And I personally take my aluminum cans to the recycle center. And so, but anyway, I would like to see how much money is being lost.
Okay.
Well, dumpster diving is illegal, and I think it's heartbreaking that people have to do it to try and scrape together money to live. I think it's implausible to put locks, because then we wouldn't be able to use our automated disposal systems. And I don't know about Mr. Kronovich, but I lived in multifamily housing for many years, and we had recycle bins, and I drive through our alleyways frequently, and we all have recycle bins, both at single-family residences and multifamily. I think the thing we need to do in order to eliminate the dumpster diving or try and reduce it is do some more enforcement, and that's why I'm supporting Measure Y, so we can keep our city economy strong and devote more money to enforcing the laws we already have on the books.
Thank you.
Glee mentioned this dumpster diving is illegal, but I'm not interested in demonizing folks who are recycling in our alleys. I'm interested in maintaining city services in a way that makes sure that our streets are clean and that we are moving towards recycling as much as possible. I expect that if we looked more closely, Susan, at the amount of money that we are talking about here, we'd find that we're saving more money on the automated trash pickup system than we are losing on the revenue from the dumpster diving.
Thank you.
We have tried to work collaboratively with the FAA, both Friends of Sunset Park and the City Council, and it just doesn't happen. But I never give up hope. But I am not for, even if they install the runway safety areas, it's still going to be too short for the C&D aircraft, the larger aircraft, to be taking off from Santa Monica Airport and flying into it. So those aircraft need to be banned, and when I'm elected to City Council, I will continue that fight. And I also want to take it even further because of the risks I've talked about with the airport, of trying to shut down the airport, starting the dialogue to see what we can do with the airport, if not to shut it down completely, to get it so that it's safer for the residents and we have no jets. That airport was never designed for the jets that fly in and out of there. Schwarzenegger's going to have to find another way to commute to Sacramento.
Well, I fully support the litigation that the city has currently undertaken with the FAA because I support banning jets at the airport. I believe it's important, however, that we look for alternative solutions because the fact of the matter is that the FAA is a federal agency and we really don't have a lot of control over it. That's why I support the efforts that community groups and the City Council have been making to reach out to our federal elected officials, such as Henry Waxman and Jane Harmon, in order to get them to begin to put some pressure where pressure is needed at the federal level on the FAA, in order to get them to come to the table to work with us to figure out how to make Santa Monica Airport as safe as possible. I think, unfortunately, that the safety measures proposed by the FAA are inadequate for the aircraft that are presently traveling in and out of the airport, and I believe that is why we need to ban jets. We also need to put reasonable restrictions on non-jet traffic. The airport's part of our history for many years. It was a benign neighbor that has changed with the advent of jets, and so I'm all for asserting whatever rights we can with the FAA.
Thank you. This is, I think, the top issue of our community that I've heard about since my time on the council. And there's no way I'd back down from the litigation. Litigation is the cost of doing business in our community. should never be deterred from bringing litigation if it's in the interests of our residents. The FAA does control a lot of what is going on at the airport. The city has very little control, frankly, but that has always been the story for federal sources of pollution. In my time, in my day job with Environment Now, I've been involved in the Dump Dirty Diesel campaign where we have addressed diesel pollution at the ports of LA and Long Beach. And in my work with NRDC and the Coalition for Clean Air at the ports, we found an important new lever to control those ports when we were told that they were federal sources and we couldn't touch them, and that was the landlord lever. The land is owned by the city of LA and the city of Long Beach in that case. In our case, we own the land there, and in 2015 we'll get new tools to deal with this.
See, ladies and gentlemen, we do have common ground. I too, I'm a Sunset Park resident. We've been there for 20 years, and the reality is that the battle with the feds and the state is a classic battle that our country has been having, and it's a proper battle, quite frankly, to see which authority, the municipality, the county, the state, or the federal. In the particular case of the airport, the natural flight path, and when you go across the country, you see golf courses and airports, so it's a natural orientation. I will move to ban the jets. I think it's improper usage and a danger to our residents. Of course, we had a rally that Susan and I and Terry popped in, but we didn't see Mrs. Davis there, so we're really working hard to ensure that the folks understand that we're going to lobby, we're going to work with the feds, we're going to work with everybody we can. But part of the process we're going through right now is to be seen more seriously. So in many ways, it's time to eradicate some of the ill-conceived notions about Santa Monica. We're serious people, and they're going to take us seriously.
Thank you, Bob.
Sure. You know, Bob, I heard you talking tonight about the role of municipal government and federal government. It came up in a couple of areas, both with the airport, but also with homelessness. And the proposal you offered on homelessness is to, if I understand it correctly, is to ask the federal government to reinstate a New Deal era program, the Civilian Conservation Corps, to address homelessness in our community, and you're going to get the federal government to do that. Is that clear? Can you elaborate on that?
I think to make it more elaborate and clearer. Folks, the man in front of you looks at the homeless and transient situation as absolute public danger in two ways. Number one, at a personal level, there's danger of mugging and other assaults, but number two, in a more substantial way, God forbid you folks have to end up in an emergency room or hospital. 50% of the calls that we get from Santa Monica Fire Department are taking our poor transient homeless to the hospital.
So do you know anybody in the federal government that's going to make this Conservation Corps idea happen?
It is the proper technique. It worked in the 30s.
Is it realistic, though?
Yes, absolutely realistic.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, I wish I had two questions.
All right, just one.
All right, all right. Terry, it's interesting that, it's very interesting that traffic, and Mr. Terry O'Day, obviously, as you know, is a talented man, but he's obviously in the pockets of developers. When you look online, you see thousands of dollars. And he was also obviously anti-T. So, Mr. Day, do you take any responsibility for the enormous growth of commercial construction and traffic in the city, or am I making a canard that you have no responsibility for that, sir?
Well, the best way to fight traffic here is to create alternatives to driving and require employers to reduce trips and prohibit new developments that would increase traffic. In my time on the Planning Commission for 6 years, I voted twice to reduce development in our neighborhoods. And I led the development of our land use and circulation element. I was the chair of the commission for quite some time there. And the number one aspect of that was neighborhood preservation. Number two was environmental sustainability. The RIFT initiative that I co-chaired the campaign against, in my view, had some flaws in the drafting in that it didn't listen to voices as to how it would affect nonprofits, housing, and the education community in our city. And as a result, I came out against what I think was a bad approach to planning. I think the loose stands on its own as an example of a good approach because it involves citizens in the community. And the facts bear it out, because we are looking at now the land use policy that is leading the state in per capita emissions reductions out of any city in the state that's adopted
Thank you.
land use ordinance.
Thank you, Terry.
Did you support or oppose Measure T, ballot measure that would put caps on commercial development?
Actually, I didn't take a stand at the time of the election. I was the co-chair of Santa Monicans for Renters' Rights, and I felt that my open and public political positions should reflect that group's decisions, and the group did not take a position on that. I think that my position on development, however, has been very clear in the time I served on the Planning Commission and on the City Council, and that is a thoughtful approach. I believe I voted for lower heights in some instances on the loose, and in other instances I supported higher heights, but only with a corresponding reduction in Florida area ratio or density, which would actually lead to less development and lower traffic.
Thank you. And now it's your turn.
All right, I would like to ask Mr. Kronovic why he opposes Measure RR when all it does is extend tenant protections to people who've lived in their homes for an extended period of time, particularly seniors and disabled people, and makes it more difficult for landlords to move out the sick and disabled in order to make room for their own non-sick and non-disabled families.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, what you have before you is a technique that goes back in our nation for many, many years, which is a way to get voters to the polls for a non-issue. I'm on the red board.
Excuse me, please don't boo.
That's okay. You know,
That's the after party.
no, I know some of you folks don't care for me. I appreciate that, but what we're really talking about is just government and for the people first. So what you have here, and I've been on the red board for 2 years, we have done very just work, but the reality is the rent control is strong, and it's a technique to get voters to come out for the polls when there is no issue.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Can't answer that in a yes or no way because I support the distribution of medical marijuana through registered pharmacies.
Okay. So would you support having a pharmacy in Santa Monica? Yes or no?
Yeah, if it's a state
Cool.
licensed pharmacy.
All right. Terry?
No, I think that the dispensaries are pretty close to us in LA.
Okay. Bob?
It is a state law, and if it's regulated and away from schools and parks, yes.
Susan?
No, for the same reason as Terry, there are plenty nearby in LA.
Great. Thank you.
Well, it's